Hello, I'm Alexis. I drove 9 hours through an icy storm, holding a cake on my lap and hope in my heart, to surprise my sister at her engagement party. But when I walked in, everyone looked at me as if I were the storm myself. I had been crossed off the guest list, laughed at as if I were an uninvited guest, and people whispered behind my back, thinking I wouldn't hear. I left Bloomfield at dawn. The silhouette of skyscrapers melted in the rearview mirror. The trunk was tightly packed, mainly because of a huge white box from Sweet Treats Bakery, carefully wrapped to keep the cake intact during the trip. Savannah once said she adored blueberry lavender cake more than anything in the world, so I ordered it a week in advance and paid extra to have it baked fresh that morning. She was my younger sister, even when she acted like she wasn't. 9 hours through wet snow, ice and tense, white-knuckled grips on the steering wheel, all to see her face when I walked in. I stopped only once to refuel and get a hot coffee, changing into high heels in the gas station bathroom. My coat clung to me like a wet blanket, but I still smiled. My cheeks burned from the wind, with the thought spinning in my head. It's worth it. She's worth it. How cold it was. When I reached Fairfield, the tires crunched on gravel covered with fresh snow. The mansion loomed like a bridal fairy tale, golden lights trailing along the wrought iron gates. Muted sounds of a string quartet wafted from the main hall. I thought, this will be unforgettable. And it was, just not in the way I'd imagined. Handing the keys to the valet, I noticed he blinked twice. "Are you from Hansbridge?" he asked. I chuckled politely, deciding he was joking. "No, I'm family." Inside, the air was warm, filled with the scents of vanilla and roses, but the cold from outside lingered. No one greeted me. Women in pastel dresses glanced over their shoulders, their lips pursed. I took a deep breath and entered with the cake box as if bearing a peace offering. And then I saw her, Savannah, in a blush-colored silk dress with perfectly curled hair. She was laughing at something one of the groom's friends whispered to her, but when she noticed me, her smile faltered and her face dimmed. "You really came," she said. "I drove all day," I replied, trying to speak more lightly than I felt. Surprise. She didn't even reach for the box. "I didn't think you'd, make it in this weather." I carefully set the cake down on a table next to trays of mini cupcakes. "But I'm here. You're getting engaged. I couldn't miss it." She blinked, and behind her, one of the bridesmaids leaned over and whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "She wasn't on the list, right?" I tried not to flinch, but then I noticed Savannah's expression. It wasn't surprised. It was calculating. "I'll be right back," she murmured, disappearing down a side corridor. I stood there, ignored, as people flowed around me like I was part of the decor. I found my mom by the fireplace, draped in pearls and a navy dress. She air-kissed near my cheek and said with a tight smile, "Just don't make this your story, okay? Tonight is Savannah's night." I forced a chuckle. "Of course." She glanced at the wet hem of my coat and frowned. Savannah's fiancé from Springdale walked by. I smiled at him. He barely nodded. I went further into the house, past frames of engagement photos. Not one included me. At the dessert table, I heard chuckles. Drama magnets. Every family has one. Maybe she thinks this is her rehearsal dinner. They didn't even try to whisper. I found a cloakroom to leave my coat. Inside was a delicate tray labeled "Bridesmaids' Gifts." 10 boxes, sparkling jewelry, handwritten cards. My name was missing. I sat on a bench nearby, exhaling slowly. Then my phone vibrated. I'd been added to some wedding chat I clearly wasn't supposed to be in. Maybe it was an accident, or perhaps the universe decided I deserved the truth. One message stood out, sent earlier that day. She doesn't fit the image. Let's just say the list was full. From Savannah. My throat dried and my eyes stung. I stepped outside, inhaling the icy air as if it could freeze everything inside. For a second, I just stared at the snowdrifts. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. I stood in the hallway, clutching my phone, its screen casting a bluish light on the cracks in my heart. My fingers trembled not from the cold, but from the words carved in that chat, Savannah's words. I stared at them a moment longer, trying to make myself unsee them, then deleted the message without responding, but the damage was done. The screen went dark, but the echo of those phrases would resound in my head for a long time. I pressed my lips, took a deep breath, and returned to the main banquet hall. This time, I walked slower, trying to find a rhythm to my steps that wouldn't make me feel like I was intruding in a world that had already rejected me. The music grew louder, bass subtly vibrating through the floor. An artfully selected mix of festive melodies flowed. Laughter came from the far corner where Savannah and her bridesmaids clustered around a gleaming tower of champagne glasses. She stood with her back to me, but I could still see her smile, and it wasn't meant for me. I walked with a veil over my eyes and accidentally found myself in a service corridor. The walls here were already lined with carts and trays of food. I paused to get my bearings, and then I heard laughter. Familiar laughter, followed by Savannah's voice. I froze. She was around the corner, talking to someone, perhaps Jade. Their voices sounded light, slightly drunken and carefree. And suddenly I heard my name. Chance sometimes reveals truths. I stood still, didn't even breathe. Their voices floated from around the corner, bouncing off the kitchen tiles. I saw their shadows on the linoleum, Savannah's curls bobbing as she gesticulated, holding a glass of champagne, while Jade sat on a stool, lazily swinging her legs. "I can't believe she really came," Jade said, laughter already ringing in her voice like a spark ready to ignite. Savannah responded without pause. 9 hours through an ice storm for what? A pathetic cupcake. Jade's laughter was sharp, cruel. She always craved attention so desperately. God, what if she crashed on the way? Savannah giggled, and something in her tone cut deeper than I'd expected. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded the peace and sympathy. Their shared laughter echoed down the corridor. It wasn't just mean, it was rehearsed. I backed away slowly as if any sudden movement might give me away. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed space. I turned down another corridor, smelling of rosemary and bleach, burst into a restroom, locked myself in a stall, and finally let the tears come. I wanted to scream, demand answers, dash back in and fling that damn cake across the room, but instead, I pressed the back of my hand to my mouth, stifling a sob. My phone vibrated in my pocket. One notification, a weather alert. Not a single message from those at the party, no check-ins, no, "Hey, where are you?" From Mom, nothing. I opened my chat with her anyway, just to be sure. The last message was mine. "Just arrived, can't wait to see everyone." Read. No response. My fingers scrolled through old chats on their own. I stopped at a Christmas photo from last year, Savannah unwrapping a gift, Mom smiling behind her. I was cropped on the edge of the frame. I remembered birthdays no one came to, the college move-in day when my roommate's mom brought decorations, and mine dropped me at the curb with a short hug and "make us proud." When I got a promotion last year, it wasn't even mentioned in the family chat. But when Savannah was featured on a yoga studio flyer, it was discussed for a week. I wiped my face, looked in the mirror. eyes red but dry, jaw set, chest like stone. As I returned to the hall, I passed through the kitchen, hoping no one would notice. The cake still stood where I left it, neatly packed in a silver box with a gold ribbon I'd chosen in the dead of night. I opened the lid and looked at it. A delicate 3-tiered vanilla cake with candied rose petals and a sugar paste inscription, "To love, to laughter, to eternity." It was still perfect, untouched. I set it on the counter. A waiter noticed me. Excuse me, guests aren't allowed here." "I'm already leaving," I said quietly. "It's all right." Not waiting for him to finish, I slipped out through the service exit, wrapped my coat tighter. The wind bit my cheeks, but oddly, it stung less than what I'd just heard. I reached my car, got behind the wheel, and stared at my phone again. 14 missed calls from numbers I knew, but none of them mattered anymore. I turned off the phone, tossed it onto the passenger seat. That night, I didn't drive home. I found Echo Creek Motel, paid in cash without giving my name, slept with the TV on, fully dressed, waiting for the pain in my heart to dull. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floral wallpaper, listening to the low hum of the air conditioner. Even though it was freezing outside, the remote lay nearby, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it on. Not a comedy to laugh, not a drama to distract. I replayed that corridor conversation in my head over and over, every word from Savannah carved into my skin. How many times had I given her a pass? How often had I justified her actions, even when they made no sense? I drove through an ice storm for her, and she didn't even bother to warn me I wasn't wanted. Yet part of me still wanted to believe this wasn't the real her, but deep down, I already knew the truth. I curled under the prickly motel blanket and whispered to the ceiling, "What am I even doing here?" No answer came, only the wind rattling the windows, as if reminding me I'd always been on the outside, looking in. Morning light seeped through the thin motel curtains. I woke still in yesterday's clothes, with a faint smell of cream and snow embedded in the coat on the chair. The phone blinked with missed calls, unread messages. I slowly sat up and picked it up, bracing for not care, but what I knew awaited. "You made Savannah uncomfortable. Why did you leave, abandoning the cake? You always had a flair for drama. Not a single message that asked, 'Are you okay?'" I scrolled further, fingers growing cold on the screen. Leah, whom I hadn't spoken to in 2 years, wrote, "You always make everything about you. It was her night." And then a message that made my stomach clench, from Mom in the family chat. "She's been unstable lately. Give her space." There it was, the new narrative. I showed up, made a scene, and ran off, unable to handle someone else's happiness. No one mentioned I'd brought a handcrafted cake through an ice storm. No one asked about the cruel words I'd overheard. No one cared why I left. The answer was too inconvenient. They needed a villain, and I was unanimously chosen for the role. By mid-morning, Savannah posted a party photo on social media. I stared at it for a full minute. She gleamed, surrounded by bridesmaids in matching white fur wraps. The caption read, "A perfect night with those I love." I wasn't in the photo. I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even a footnote. I blinked at a message from Zoe. "Weren't you supposed to be at the party? Savannah said you couldn't make it. Everything okay?" I didn't reply, just watched the screen, realizing the rewriting of history had already begun. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted to erase me. The sun cast long blue shadows on the snowbank beside my car. I didn't call Savannah back, but for the first time in years, I smiled because I wasn't going to justify myself anymore. Let them talk. Let them lie. They wrote their version, and I was ready to write mine. During the night, the snow slightly thawed, leaving a crust of slush outside my apartment window. I sat at the kitchen table in my pajama shirt and leggings. Coffee cooled beside me. I hadn't planned to answer her call, but I was tired of hiding behind silence. When Savannah's name lit up on the screen, I hit accept and leaned the phone against the sugar jar. The screen flickered, and there she was, flawless, with lashes still touched by mascara and soft curls like 2 nights ago. Everything as measured as always. "You picked the strangest time to disappear," she said, not letting me get a word in. "People are asking questions." I stayed silent. Savannah leaned closer to the camera, her tone dropping. "You always over-dramatize, take everything personally. This weekend wasn't about you." "I nearly died getting there," she blinked. "I drove through an ice storm, brought the cake I ordered for weeks. I was wet, frozen, exhausted, but I came, and in return I heard how you joke that I crashed the party, how it would have been more convenient if I hadn't been there at all." "That's not fair," she began. "No," I interrupted, looking her in the eye. "What's unfair is being a ghost at your celebration. No place, no photo, no acknowledgement. You crossed me out of your engagement like I was a stain on your perfect white dress." She snorted, that giggle of hers when she's cornered. "You're making a whole drama out of this. I'm not the villain." "Then stop acting like one." Her face hardened. "You're trying to ruin my moment." "I'm doing nothing," I replied calmly. "I'm just tired of letting you rewrite the truth." She started speaking faster, interrupting, desperately trying to regain control. I didn't hang up. I muted her for 30 seconds. Watched as she talked into the screen, not knowing I couldn't hear her. She flailed her hands, her lips tight, eyes sparkling. Then she noticed I wasn't reacting. I ended the call without drama, simply pressing a button. For the first time, she felt what it was like to speak into emptiness. I looked at the blank screen, then opened my email, attached the invoice from Sweet Treats Bakery. The email's subject was simple: cake invoice for Savannah's engagement. In the body of the email, one line: enclosed is the invoice for the cake I paid for, the one that went untouched. I sent it to Mom, Aunt Mavis, and Savannah. A few minutes later, a reply came from Mom. Only 4 words. "This doesn't help, Alexis." I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. No apologies, no acknowledgement. Another attempt to deflect from the issue. But I wasn't the 15-year-old girl trying to prove my place at the adult table anymore, nor the 22-year-old craving approval when I got my first job and no one came to the celebratory dinner. I no longer pleaded, I documented, and the truth finally overshadowed their polished silence. By the time I finished my second cup of coffee Monday morning, a new message appeared in my inbox. Enough from Mom. I opened it, expecting another cold reprimand, but this was different. Not angry, not caring, but calculating. "You've embarrassed our family enough," the letter started. "You're lucky you were invited at all. Don't ruin Savannah's future out of jealousy." At the bottom was a screenshot from a new private family chat. I wasn't in this chat, of course, but they were discussing me. Savannah wrote, "She's behaving erratically. You know she always twists everything. Just wait, she'll turn this into a sob story." Mom responded with a thumbs up emoji. Jade added, "We tried including her. It's her who dramatizes everything." The story was already spreading like rot beneath floorboards, quietly, filthily, unstoppably. And now it had a digital trail. What hurt the most wasn't the betrayal itself, but how rehearsed everything appeared, as if they had a plan in case I became a problem. And when I gave no reason, They invented one. I leaned back from the laptop and in that moment realized I wasn't hurt anymore. By noon, a coworker messaged in the work chat, "Hey, just so you know, someone shared a screenshot of a weird post on social media about a sister of the bride who freaked out. Is this not about you?" My pulse quickened. I found Savannah's profile. She'd posted a photo in pastel tones, champagne in hand, head thrown back, laughing. Caption: "Sometimes envy hides behind a familiar face, but true love shines brighter." She didn't tag me, but everyone who knew us both would understand whom it referred to, and that would have been enough. But a photo with an anonymous story from a bridesmaid from the recent engagement had already started being reposted by popular groups and chats. It described how a relative showed up uninvited, demanded attention, threw a fit, and disappeared. My mouth went dry. It was no longer a family drama. It had gone public, and it changed everything. I didn't scream, didn't throw things. Instead, I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Truth. Inside lay neatly photographed snow-covered roads, a cake invoice, a video clip of the box through the car window, screenshots of messages I was never meant to see. I opened my profile and shared 3 pictures: the cake in a lit kitchen amidst the snow, my frost-covered windshield after 9 hours of travel, a simple selfie at the mansion, damp with red cheeks, holding the cake box. Caption: "Sometimes you show up for people who wouldn't clear a path for you, but this is how you learn. Some things you do out of love, and some teach you who deserves it." I disabled comments after 2 hours when they overwhelmed. Some supported, some were confused, others asked for details. I wasn't ready to give them, but had done enough already. Then I opened mail, created a new email, attached the PDF with the chat screenshot and Savannah's post. Recipient: the PR department at Bright Haven Solutions, where her new husband worked. No comments, just materials. If he wanted a marriage built on calculated lies, let him see how it was crafted. "Not revenge," I whispered aloud. "Consequences." In the evening, as the snow began swirling again and gently tapping against the windows, my phone vibrated. A message from Jade. "You didn't hear this from me, but Savannah's fiancé postponed the dinner with parents, said something happened." I didn't respond. There was no need. I curled up on the sofa, lit a candle, and draped a warm blanket over my legs. For the first time, I didn't feel like the storm in their story. I was a clearing in the clouds. My story was just beginning, while theirs was already nearing its end. Did you like the story? Write your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next interesting story. See you tomorrow.